Hello, welcome back. Welcome to the final session in this five-part series about the five strategies I wish I had earlier as a working mom, and without which I was stuck and overwhelmed for way too long. So, if you've made it this far, you've come to probably the most important piece of all in this webinar series, and that is the my anchor point, the long-term vision. In one of my posts recently, I shared a story when I was running my first Pros and Babes sessions a few years ago, actually almost 6 years ago. I gathered a number of moms with infants and we came together to discuss career and family life integration. And I discovered how complex this topic was. So we were doing different book clubs and discussing articles. And one of the exercise we did was an inner mentor visualization. We were invited to travel into the future and meet our future selves and imagine ourselves in a beautiful house and how we looked. And we were invited to tap into that inner mentor. And of course, the exercise didn't go that well when we had a bunch of moms with babies on their laps. They would tug at their mom's hair, and it was impossible to stay focused in the space. So we opened our eyes. I said, "All right, this exercise is not going to work today. Let's discuss what your kids will say about you in 25 years." And boy, I wasn't prepared for the tears that came during that session. It was very hard for the moms to imagine their children being adults. And yet, if everything goes well, one day your kids will be independent adults who can meet their needs and provide for the communities and their families. But what's going to happen along the way? I think many women that I've worked with, and it's been hundreds over the years, are concerned about how they were going to swing being a working mom and squaring their parenting duties and having enough time for both and being good enough at both. So the mindset piece is really critical here. Obviously, there's the execution, how you actually make it happen on a day to day. I'm happy to discuss that in more depth, and I hope the other sessions gave you some clarity on that. But at the end of the day, the family project, when you look at your quote unquote graduation date, when your kids graduate from your home and they are ready to begin their lives, how will they remember you being a working mom? How do you remember your parents growing up? If there were two careers in your household, what did you learn from observing your parents being working parents? And I think that is such an important question to answer. And that is the most important strategy of all. The day-to-day of raising children can leave us stuck on autopilot, just trying to figure out, what am I going to eat today? What are the kids going to wear at school? Did I get their snow boots? But a year passes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have women coming to me when their kids are teens and never really having thought about these fundamental questions and waking up and thinking, wow, I'm burnt out, or I'm maybe 10 years from retirement. And what did I do in the last 10 years? I went to work. I'm proud of my kids, but like, what am I actually building truly? And they want to recalibrate. So I'm starting off with that really valuable nugget, is that 25-year strategy, how I came to develop it. That idea was the combination of that inner mentor exercise and then realizing how powerful it was to stare at my values board. About 10 years ago, I decided to do a word cloud with values. And when I was nursing my two kids, I stared at that values board for many hours, and it made me think, and one of my core values is faith. And it anchored it really deeply in my heart, reflecting on, what does that actually mean? How does that translate into day-to-day behaviors? What do I need to do to support faithful living? Who do I need to surround myself with? And I came up with the idea of designing this 25-year vision that I have actually in a book, in a playbook, and we have my husband's hung on the wall right here, that I would look at very often to remind me of what I was building. And This vision is a unique approach that we have here at Pros and Babes, and it defines what you're building in every area of your life. And how we get there is also unique because most women I work with are used to approaching design of their goals from a very intellectual perspective. But as a mom, you need to also tap into your heart and into your desires. And that's one thing that we don't do very well when we become moms because we are so used to taking care of the needs of others. We rarely stop to ask ourselves, what do I desire? What do I want to build for my mindset, for my relationships? What does work life balance look like for me? How do you actually have that defined very specifically? Because your calendar and your daily actions define that work life integration. And if you're like anything, most of the moms I've worked with, you overcram your calendar and there's no such thing as work life balance for you. It's just nonstop go, go, go. Many of you won't leave the home by yourself, right? So if you don't know what work life integration balance flow looks like for you, how are you going to get there? How are you going to start saying no to the things that lead you to burnout? So you need clarity there. You need clarity when it comes to your finances. I often talk about the $1 million wealth gap because there are so many systemic factors, but they're all mindset pieces as well, with us women being less comfortable to talk about money and about investing and about taking risk. So, again, if you don't have a vision of where you're going with your finances, how are you going to get there? Saying that I want to have enough in retirement to provide for myself is not very specific. What about your personal brand? We know that people have an opinion of who you are as a working mom. That's why I'm here, because so many people before us have decided to define what we are and what we aren't. In fact, in the worksheet that I have for you, I want to share what I read in Science Mag a couple of years ago about maternal wall bias. It occurs when colleagues view mothers or pregnant women as less competent or less committed to their jobs, and it's a major problem for women's career advancement. In a landmark study published in 2007, researchers sent fictitious job applications to employers in response to marketing and business job openings. Women who didn't have children were 2 times more likely to be called for an interview as compared with similarly qualified mothers. Undergraduate students were also asked to examine those same applications and make recommendations. The students rated mothers to be less competent and committed, and they recommended $11,000 less in starting salary, right? So that is the type of personal brand that motherhood can come with in our career pathways. And so it's important to take control of the narrative. Think about the skills you bring to the table. Think about the value you bring to the table. Think about the money you would like to earn, whether it's from your salaried position or alternative streams of income. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, and you have it whether you like it or not. So you might as well be strategic in defining it. And an exercise that I like to do is imagine in 25 years when you retire, for example, you can use another timeline. What are the top 3 things that you would like the people you impacted to say about you? Imagine a room filled with all the people that have benefited from your skills, from your dedication, from the time you put in to develop your craft. Imagine them celebrating you and your contribution. That can be a solid starting point for your personal brand as a working mom. What about how you parent and what your family life looks like? We've all inherited ideas of how our family life can look in the morning, in the evening, our traditions, even possibly what the purpose of our family life is, right? So, in 25 years, when your kids look back on the life you've built together, how they've observed you as a working mom, what are the memories that they will have? What will be captivated in their hearts? What will they want to bring forward? What are the things that you remember growing up with your parents and that you would like to keep? And what are the things you would like to let go of? So, have you thought intentionally about that? There's also the important pillars of career skills, career planning, and leadership. What makes you successful in all of these areas, as especially women who take caregiving breaks? And who knows, maybe for some of you watching these recordings, you are not a woman, right? And you're taking caregiving breaks. So this will be relevant to you as well. But still, typically, as I'm recording this video, women take a lot of caregiving breaks throughout their careers. And that impacts your leadership path, your career skills, all of that. So we need to design different career arcs for ourselves that will lead us to success on our terms. And we need to define that. And again, a question I love to ask is, how are you making the world a better place for your children? What kind of world will your kids inherit at the end of your career because of the work you did? And I think that can be such an important leadership question, because it helps you think about your impact. It helps bring the intersection of your motherhood and your career at the table. So you're working for something bigger than a paycheck or whatever your division is accomplishing, right? And that can become the foundation and the anchor for all your other career path and leadership discussions. Another key piece in that is a dual career plan. So if you're watching this video, it's probable that you have another member of the household, you possibly, right, your partner, who has a career, and you have to become very skilled at project management together to be able to handle two careers and children. And often when the primary caregiver takes career breaks, their career can take a backseat and be considered less important. So I always talk about, what does your 25-year dual career plan look like? What are the different seasons of your life, of your children's ages? What matters to you at every season of your life? And do that alongside of your partner. This brings me back to one of the key pillars in the 25-year vision, which is relationships. So most people that I work with have a partner. That's not the case for everyone. And then we adjust the conversation accordingly. But you are raising a child together or children together. And if you are not a team at home, that's going to impact what happens on the work front typically, right? If there's not an agreement on who takes the sick days, on what things look like when you travel, on both careers being important, if that's what matters to you in your household, then it's very hard to thrive as a working mom if you don't have that teamwork at home. So this is the most important strategy I teach when I work with my clients. And I also talk about it in some of my free training and resources. I always start with my clients looking at their vision, their values. So their values first, and this vision that I gave you at a glance. And we use a special method to be able to design it, again, that taps more on the emotions and the heart. And it's not just something that you sit and think about. You actually access more of an emotional, visual being to do that. You can attend some of my future workshops if you're interested in that. And then the roadmap. So we break it down. Obviously, there's this 25-year vision, which can seem kind of long-term and abstract, yet it helps you understand what's the bigger game you're playing. And what my clients tell me on the day-to-day when they have this strategy, this vision on their wall. And one thing I love about it is, even if you're a nursing mom or if you're extremely busy and you don't have time for tons of learning, your strategy is always available to you. So that's why it's so critical. It is game changing, because when people are able to prioritize the different pillars in their life and give themselves a more appropriate timeline, the day-to-day all of a sudden doesn't seem so daunting. The day-to-day problems aren't so difficult. It's easier to make decisions when you have those vision and values visible to you, when you know how you want to manage your energy, when it's time to make decisions about your career, activities, finances, moves, health. You always have that handy in front of you. And when people decide to commit to do this work with me, they actually take the time to do it. They sit down, they talk about it with their partners. I mentor them on how to have the discussions and when to have the discussions with their partners, because you're building this as a team. It becomes incredibly game changing. I have people coming back to me a few months or a year later saying, I made a completely different career decision. I parent differently. My finances and my financial plan look completely differently. My mental health is different because of doing this work. So this is a strategy that's absolutely critical. Being able to play the long game. It's a season of your life when you transition into being a working mother. And even if you're listening to this as your kids are older, but you haven't actually done this work of understanding how your identity shifted from being a person focused on their career to juggling a career with children, it's never too late to do it. It's still very relevant to you. It's just that when you do have those smaller kids, things may feel more raw and there's more to juggle in terms of germs and developmental stages. Later, the game with kids is more emotional to some extent, right? So this is a strategy that has helped me find more integration. I like to use the work-life integration between my personal and family life. Now, I've worked in different industry. I've been a journalist. I worked in international development. I've worked in corporate communications. And now as a business owner, I have more freedom to design my calendar. So when I design it every year, I make sure to map out the blackout times from work, to map out my vacations, to map out my one-on-one time with my kids, my dates with my husband, our international trips. I make that a priority because it's so tempting for work to take over everything. I love my work. It's often where I feel the most engaged, the most stimulated. And even though I have had moments where I wondered, can I be a good mother and a good professional? Like I think any one of you here, sometimes there are seasons where it's hard. I don't think I could ever completely get away from that brain work, that intellectual work. I love the mission and the purpose. And I also like to be able to show that to my children. So that's how having this long-term anchor, this long-term vision. And then I have tons of tools that I use to break it down on, let's say, a 1-year level, a 3-year level, a quarterly level, a weekly level, a day level, where I have much more understanding of how I use my time and energy. That's how this long-term vision is helping me find that work and family life integration. I've had seasons of really pushing harder in my business, and it's true, family fit more around that. But then I recalibrated. I said, no, this year, actually, my work is going to fit around my family. And that long-term vision is the foundation of everything. It's had also a big impact on my mental health. Like many of you listening here, my mental health has had its ups and downs. And if I focus on my, let's say, anxiety or problems, instead of focusing on my vision and what I'm building, there's a difference in my mental health. When I'm consciously making choices and taking accountability for my life and what I'm creating versus seeing myself as a victim of the system. Let's face it. I mean, I think about the patriarchy every day. I get upset about how taxes, insurance, financial benefits, like everything is structured mostly by men for men to succeed. The legal system, I mean, everything, policies. If I thought about that every single day, I would go absolutely crazy, right? But when I have my own vision of what my contribution and my leadership is going to be, and I get clear about it, that as a mother, as a woman, this is how I'm going to lead, it gives me peace of mind. It helps me with my mental health. And now that my husband has his 25-year vision board and we've talked about values, and we've even traveled as far as Istanbul, just the two of us, to think about our long-term legacy and what it means to build a legacy that will last beyond our lifetime and for generations to come. It's just, we're more on the same page. We're building as a team. We're making more decisions that honor our needs as a couple, as a family, our individual needs. And again, that long-term vision is the centerpiece of everything. It's where everything flows from. And they're pretty high-level statements. I have a formula for it because it can feel daunting at first. So they're high-level summary statements that I help you design, and then we craft a strategy for each pillar and then a roadmap to implement it, right? We get to the very specifics of the tools. So obviously it's had an impact on my goals too, because if I'm playing the long game, I'm going to allocate my energy differently. I know that there are going to be seasons of ups and downs, and I know that some of my pillars on my long-term vision are going to take more space in certain seasons of life, and in others, they're going to take less space. So it definitely helps me calibrate my goals at a different level. It's had a huge impact on my finances because, well, first of all, I don't know how many of you will relate to my situation, but learning to be a business owner is a learning curve of many years where you learn about taxes and bookkeeping and hiring the right financial professionals. But because of my intentionality and this entrepreneurial spirit, I got to come across an amazing wealth planner who now has partnered with me to teach moms on how to build millions. And I'm really mindful of saying this to not sound like hokey, but I'm very passionate about the $1 million wealth gap. And I work typically, I work with a lot of dual engineer couples. So the incomes are pretty good in those families, right? And we find ways to add millions to their net worth. Well, our wealth planning team does, by simply restructuring assets and talking about money and putting a plan together. And I never thought these things were possible before. And of course, I'm still a little bit early on that journey as an entrepreneur, but I'm already seeing huge shifts in the multiple six figures that we've been able to put in our family's name by working with a financial advisor and a wealth planner that actually takes into account women's earning curves, earning potentials, challenges. We've been working together for over 3 years now, and 4 years, almost 4 years. And she really tuned into the challenges that we have as mothers and our concerns, our financial concerns. So every year when we work with her, both in the Mom BA program and also personally, she is open to designing solutions with us that take into account the career arcs of women like me, like STEM professionals who take career breaks and have, let's say, high income potential. So I'm careful when I'm talking about this financial stuff, because I know that if most of you hear, like, how do you add millions to your net worth? It's not conversations that I was having a few years ago. And it's normal to be extremely skeptical when you hear about it for the first time. But I've seen too many financial plans starting to flourish in that direction to not talk about it, essentially. So I also wanted to tell you about the impact for my marriage. Having this long-term vision, and I started off with mine, and then my partner took a couple of years before he developed his. It gives us a common language. It helps us understand each other better. It helps us agree on some parenting principles, on how we want to raise our kids, the role of faith in our lives, the role of the different family traditions that had us come together, the role of our careers and community and all of that. So having that vision and values board available to us helps us have our discussions as a couple and build forward. And finally, it's impacted my definition of success, because I am the creator of that definition of success. Up until, well, relatively recently and throughout most of my youth and childhood, I was really, really good academically, and so much of my identity was tied to performance and getting good grades and succeeding. And so taking the time to look inside my heart to craft that long-term strategy made a huge impact on how I perceive success. It's more tied to my heart, to what I want to create in the world, to the type of impact I want to bring to women. And that's much more rewarding than building somebody else's definition of success. So I hope that this recorded session is giving you some insight on what is important to you. If you have any concerns about, let's say, going back to work after maternity leave, or making a career transition as a mother with a successful career, if you're concerned about the wage gap and your financial potential and missing out on millions that could be added to your net worth, if you want to be promoted faster, if you are curious about what a personal brand as a working mom could look like for you, maybe on the negative side, you're feeling overwhelmed, or you have people pleasing tendencies, or life just feels uncomfortable as a working mom. Maybe you have conflict with your spouse about how you manage sick days and career trajectories. I would definitely like to talk to you, whether you're more attuned to the positives in your life or the negative. There's always room to build. There's room to enhance. There's room to expand your vision as a working mother, and that is my specialty. So think about what having this 25-year vision could mean for you and your life, and feel free to hop on, request this workbook, and hop on a call with me to discuss what are your 4 areas of priority that you would like to progress on in the short term based on that long-term vision, I'm definitely glad to speak. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. My name is Kinya Romanovska, and this is Pros and Babes. You can, if you're on our email list, you can respond to info@Pros and Babes. And if you've enjoyed this series, make sure to let other working moms know about it. We are also available for corporate workshops. And of course, if you want to join our 12-month community and group learning program to design that 25-year vision, those values, take advantage of all of our resources and meet other moms like you and really make this your best year yet as a working mom, then reach out to. We are accepting applications a few times per year. Thank you so much for paying attention to this really, really important strategy. I hope you found it helpful and insightful, and I hope that I get to meet you on a one-on-one coffee chat. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.